Hey, it's Christopher Cardinal, and you're listening to the Super Fantastic Above Average Racing Spectacular. Hey, everyone. Hope you're doing well out there. This is episode number 6 of our program, and we have a lot, as I say many times in previous episodes, we have a lot of meat on the bone, so we have a lot of topics to cover. Major news week, a lot of crazy events going on in NASCAR Monster Energy Cup Series and around motorsports, so we are going to get fired up. I'm going to wave the green flag on this episode, and we're going to start off with Dover. The Gander Outdoors 400, race number 1 in round 2, the round of 12, and the playoffs. And Chase Elliott. I remember talking, people talking for months upon months, really 2 years now. Where's Chase Elliott? Why hasn't he won a race yet? Why hasn't he inserted himself as one of the all-time potential greats in the sport based on his pedigree and the Elliott racing heritage? And we all know that. We all know the story. We all know about Chase, Xfinity champion, highly touted prospect. Hendrick picked up, put into a quality team in the 24, and then transitioned to the number 9, paying homage to Bill. And hey, he's got 2 wins. It all started with Watkins Glen in August. I mean, rolled it. And what did I say? I remember saying this for years. I wouldn't worry about him. I think it was a really slow transition to get where they thought they needed to be, the number 9 or the 24 team. It's essentially the same car, just number change. He's going to knock them off. When he gets going, he's going to keep on going and going and going and going and going. And that's what he's done. And win number 2, less than 2 months, mighty impressive. Advances to the prestigious round of 8. And he will do that for the 2nd consecutive season. Could have went in the final. I hadn't been in my Final Four last year, thanks to Denny Hamlin at Martinsville. We all know how that turned out. Was well on his way to victory there. Kind of a payback for this one, too. We should have won this race a year ago at Dover. So it's just a lot of racing karma coming back around in Elliott's favor. And win number 2 in career start 107. It only leads 11 laps of this, as we said. Sometime you don't need to go out there and blister the field. And Stuart Haas did a good job of doing that, did they not? Did they have a stranglehold of this race only to lose it in the end? But we'll touch on that later. So this is, like I said, the first win since Watkins Glen. And in the last 9 races, 5 top 5s, 7 top 10 finishes in the last 9. So this is something Chase is now in a zone. We're going to look ahead here to what I think he could do in the races coming up. I have him in my Final Four again. Spoiler alert, he's there. I don't see, we talk so much about Harvick and Busch and I'm going to stop referring to them as that name, their moniker they've attained in the last several months. I think you're going to get sick of me talking about that. But it is what it is. And these 3 guys, Harvick, Kyle Busch, Truex, are on his own. They're in a league of their own. They trade barbs week after week, it seemed like. That's cooled off considerably in the late summer, early fall here. And Chase Elliott, I think, can insert himself and compete with those guys. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a few moments. But for what it is, I think he's going to be there. Now you figure out the other 3. I got him as a lock for the Final Four, and I'll tell you why later. So this is starting to look like Chase is transitioning with the trouble that Johnson seems to have found himself in this season. cannot, for whatever reason, when we get some Johnson news, breaking Johnson news, actually, it was caught me off guard a little, but Johnson's really out of sync this year. William Byron, again, seat time, young guy, once a generational talent, once in a lifetime talent. Drove the wheels off the trucks, the Xfinity series, and seems to have kind of hit a stumbling block in Cup. And it's understandable for a rookie. I mean, I didn't expect he was going to go up there and set the world afire. Did you? Be honest, no. You had Chase. I think this is Chase's team. Hendrick is the face of the franchise. Is Chase for Hendrick, and I think when Rick hired him to replace Jeff Gordon 3 years ago, this is what was planned out. This is where they were headed with Chase. This is where they wanted to be with Chase. And he's finally starting to blossom into the superstar and great talented driver that he was expected to be. So Chase now, and then, Alex Bowman, we throw him, he's the other kind of forgotten Hendrick guy. He's quietly making the 88 his own. We've talked about that. He's done considerably well. I think Alex Bowman, if you're looking at someone who exceeded expectation this season, it's Alex Bowman. Alex Bowman is, I don't know if he's going to escape the round of 12 and make it to the round of 8. I'd say it looks doubtful. And I think no one's expecting him to do that. If he does it, I will commend him absolutely if he can do that. And it's nothing on it. If Alex does not advance past this round, nobody's mad at it. I'm not mad at it. I think Alex Bowman's had a great season. He's only going to get better. The future of Hendrick is looking absolutely roll tide. And I think Chase, I just can't say enough about this guy. I think, forget his pedigree for a moment and just look at the racer. This is a guy who's passionate about winning. You saw him, how heated it got. We were going to stick back to Martinsville last year. He had that race won, and he knew what the stakes were. He knew he had an opportunity probably to go on and compete for that championship at Homestead Miami. He finished his 5th in this race at Homestead last year. And, man, I think he has what it takes. Can he make the Final Four? Absolutely. I think we're going to look at some tracks. He should have won the Martinsville race last year. It's been talked about numerous times. We know the story. Tracks en route to the Final Four. So you look at Martinsville, could have won it last year. He was 3rd in the 2016 spring race, 9th in the spring 2000 race. So he seems to like Martinsville. Great accounting for himself a year ago on the tricky paperclip. So we're just looking past. We can do this. We're springing ahead here simply based on the fact that he could still win Talladega. He could win Kansas. He doesn't have to. The pressure's off. So I don't think, as competitive as this team wants to be and knows they have a lot of work to do still, even though they have found themselves in a advantageous position to be already in the next round, they have that luxury. I don't think he's going to go into Talladega this weekend or next week at Kansas and say, we're just going to turn it off. I don't think we have to give it a whole 110%. That's absolutely not going to happen. You know that. Let's say he does not emerge victorious in those 2 races. His chances of getting to that Final Four are going to run through Martinsville, Texas, Phoenix. And I like his opportunity to make a great accounting for himself at Martinsville. Texas, he has 2 top 5s and 5 career starts. 2016, he's finished no worse than 5th. No worse than 11, in those 5 starts. So in 2016, he was in a really good position as well to do. Texas has always been a track where it's so large and it comes down to, in the end, at this point of the season, it comes down to patience, and this could be a really groundbreaking race at Texas. I think it was a turning point for Kurt Busch years ago when he was in the position to advance, and that when the playoff was structured so much differently back then. So I think when we go back and we survey how important that race at Texas has been through the years when it comes to the championship, it's always that the third to last race, and by that point there's a lot of jockeying for position. drivers who, and it's been historically won by drivers that are in the championship chase. And much of these races are going to be, these championship races are won by guys who are fighting for the championship. It's a little Talladega this week, as you might see a pattern there, where some guys who would not had any playoff implications show up and just steal one. Say, you know what? I'm here to compete. I'm here to win. This means nothing to me as far as points go. But when it comes to securing maybe, let's say, an opportunity for next season or to build the program for next season, I think that's when you start looking at, well, this is what we got to do, right? So in both races in 2016 with Chase, he finished 5th in the spring, 4th in the race in the fall. It was in the playoff in 16. In Texas, you look at the last, we're not going to spend too much time here on Texas, but you look at the winners from Texas in the last 3 seasons at this night race, at this final. Harvick wins it last season. The year before, you have Carl Edwards, who's chasing the championship. You have Johnson winning it in 15. Johnson winning again in 14. 13. He just owned that place at Wapaya. I think he'd love to go there. Needs a win. Johnson had went in there and just owned that place. And then you've seen Tony Stewart win in 2011. He went on that remarkable run and that great championship battle with Carl Edwards down to the final lap at Homestead. See, winning at Texas is one of those things that can shift your momentum. It did that for Kurt Busch, as I was talking about in 2009. Denny Hamlin in 2010 put him in a position where he went into Phoenix ahead of Jimmie Johnson in the championship. Just couldn't execute in the final race at Homestead. Let it slip through his fingers. Be a golden opportunity for someone like Chase to go in there, win Texas, and put the pressure on. He's going to be in this Final Four, I'm telling you. I can say this now on October the 10th as we're recording this. 8:24 Eastern Standard Time. Chase Elliott is in the Final Four. He's going to make the Final Four. I know he is. He's going to make this thing. I'm telling you. So he goes on to Phoenix, where he had a runner-up, and runner-up finish in the fall 2017. He's third in the spring of 2018. 5 career starts there. No worse than 12th. And that was in spring of 2017. Another place he seemingly has figured out, knows how to get around. That could be a crucial event for him. And Homestead, he was 5th in the 2017 race, as we talked about. Don't think he's done winning in 2018. You look at these tracks. Martinsville, he could roll one off. Texas. Phoenix. He wins Kansas or Talladega. He's winning at least 1 to 2 more races this season. I think it's just in that mindset, that mind frame. We talked a lot about momentum so much in the sport. He's got that momentum shifting in his direction. And Chase Elliott's going to take this and he's going to put it in a whole other stratosphere because I think he's on fire. And the big 3, I think, is on edge right now. So does he have what it takes to compete with that big 3 or even Penske when it comes down to, let's say, 2 of the big 3 in a Penske car? I won't say which one yet, and him. I think he has everything it takes to go to Miami, compete with them, but he can't be trepidatious. Trepidation? No. Park that once you get into the race car that weekend. I think it'd be sensational to see a Hendrick car, especially the legacy with the number 9 and his dad, Bill Elliott. This would be tremendous to see. I think he has what it takes to compete with this big 3, take him down, and win this championship. If he wins this championship, I would not at all be shocked. And the numbers haven't changed much. You look at his career numbers from the rookie season to now, fairly steady, same numbers. Nothing really changes or shifts in any other direction. And Chase has he's done a great job this season. And I think whatever he finishes and where he finishes in that top 4, I think this is something they're going to build on. And he's the face of the franchise. And Hendrick just really clearly made the right choice in sticking with him and building around him. And I think this is Chase's time to shine. And you're just going to see nothing but great things out of Chase Elliott. So it's a big day for some of the eliminated drivers. So some of the drivers who are just a little weak, a little late, about a week late showing up for the party, this could have changed their positioning. Let's say this was a week ago. Denny Hamlin's finishing second. I know he still wouldn't have advanced, but good finish for him. This is his best finish since Indianapolis for both him and teammate Eric Jones. He was fourth in this race. Both eliminated Joe Gibbs race cars. Great accounting for themselves at Dover. Seventh for Austin Dillon, the other eliminated driver. I think that's an encouraging sign for them. They've got a lot of good things on the horizon at RCR. Nice seventh-place finish. Joey Logano, 0 for 20 in count. Comes home in third in this race, puts himself fourth in the standings. Loves Talladega. We're going to talk a lot about Joey and Talladega in a minute here. So this is his best Dover finish since the fall of 2014. 4 Xfinity wins. Loves Dover, but for whatever reason ever has yet to taste victory in the Cup Series at Dover. 2019 maybe, but Joey is in a prime position to get himself back in the Final Four, I think, where he belongs. As I tell you, we talk a lot about Big Three. If you want to put a Big Four, I'm putting Joey in there. I know Joey's slowed down a little. The numbers are a little deceiving. He's taking a little step back from 2016 Joey, 2015 Joey, but still same old guy, and I think Joey Logano is going to put himself in that position if given the right opportunity. He could do it this week, Talladega win, get in that round of 8, and just let it all fly there. And I think Joey Logano has an opportunity to put himself, immerse himself amongst those top 4 come Homestead. Kurt Busch, this is a great finish for Kurt, 5th at Dover. Second consecutive top 5. He had a top 5 finish at the Roval. 6th in the standings going in. And again, all year we talk about Kurt flying on the radar. So much talk and emphasis at Stewart-Haas Racing about Kevin Harvick and the dominance that is Harvick. Leads tons of laps, wins races. And then you have Clint Boyer, who seemingly has found a way to revitalize his career in the 14 car. A little bit of an off year last year, but they were building blocks there. Almirola, who's performed extremely well in the 10 car. And then you have Kurt Busch, who just seems to be, again, every year when we talk about Kurt, I know, and I've said it before, Kurt is always good for at least, he's consistent enough to get you 1 to 2 wins a year since he's been with Stewart-Haas in 14. Kind of flies under that radar. I think he still has a shot at this championship. No one's really talking about him. The only conversation he's generating at this point is that his impending departure and arrival at Chip Ganassi Racing. But a real shout out to Kurt Busch for not letting those kind of pressures or those kind of rumor and innuendos get to him and break the team down. The team seems rather focused. Where I read an article from ESPN breaking down these championship contenders, and one of the drawbacks to why Kurt would not advance really high in the playoffs this year is that the team is not focused on the championship. They're focused on the future, a future that does not involve Kurt Busch and Kurt Busch's future with Ganassi. So a round of applause for a guy like Kurt and Billy Scott, the crew chief. You just turn off the noise there and you just go for it. And they want to win a championship. In the end, it's not about Kurt Busch winning and Stewart-Haas Racing winning a championship. It's about Kurt Busch winning the championship, becoming a 2-time champion in this sport. Be great accolade for Stewart-Haas, absolutely. Stewart-Haas to get themselves a championship again, with what would be the 3rd different driver. They've done it with the boss himself, Tony Stewart. They've done it with Kevin Harvick, and if he can do it here with Kurt Busch, I think it just cements Busch's legacy as well. We talked about Hall of Fame in a few episodes prior, and Hart's a Hall of Famer, man. You look at the things he's done in this sport, and Kurt Busch, to me, Hall of Fame bound, and he was second in the spring race at Talladega. He could win himself a race here. He's done well at Kansas in the past. Kurt Busch is far from out of this playoff and this championship chase. I just think whether he goes to wherever he's going, we probably is Ganassi, right? It's just the veteran of Kurt Busch's caliber. This guy's not done racing yet. This guy is still competitive as ever, and good on him. And he's doing a great job in the 41 car, finishing it out like a true champion. And you just never know where he'll end up. He might be in the winner's circle at Homestead in raising that trophy for sponsor Monster Energy. Wouldn't that be cool? So we have Harvick, 6th place. Again, Harvick being Harvick. He leads 286 laps. Issues on pit row. He hasn't won a race since Michigan in August, so I don't know if that's set off any alarm bells, but it's Harvick is still running up front. He's just consistent, but he's not getting the wins. And Talladega hasn't been an extremely kind track to him. I know he's won there, but not one of his favorite racetracks. Kansas coming up, we all know what he can do there. He won there in May. But Harvick, I think, as crazy as it's going to for me to say this, I think Harvick needs a win for the round of 8. I don't think Harvick is just going to be satisfied or will feel any kind of gratification advancing on consistency and points, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think when you have the level of excellence that Harvick's been running at since he's arrived at Stewart-Haas in 2014, there's no room for error. And I think he needs to find a way to convert over these next two and execute in these next two races, win one of those. So you're going into that round of 8 with momentum, and clearly any of those round, Phoenix is coming up. He's owned that place. They should just rename that place Harvick Motor Speedway or Harvick, whatever it's called, ISM International, whatever that's called. They change the names of these things so frequently. It's just really hard to keep up. It's like the stadiums now. The stadiums was just progressed. It was at Jacobs Field in Cleveland, and I remember one of the announcers saying, this is called Progressive Field now. It's probably might not be called that for much longer. They switch title sponsors and names, it seems, seemingly yearly. And I think Harvick makes a case that he owns that track in Phoenix. And I think when he gets to Phoenix, he's always a guy that you can't write off the book. But he's done well at Texas and, his track record in Martinsville. So I think to get to that round of 8, winning Talladega or winning Kansas would put this team, sort of put out a little fire. Not saying that this team is really on the hot seat or anyone is really saying that this team is dead in the water, because it's Kevin Harvick, man. He's gonna rise to the occasion. That's what he does. He's the champ. Kevin Harvick has been, if anything, one of the most consistent drivers of the past decade. Not worrying about Kevin Harvick, man. He'd be the last guy I'd worry about. If he doesn't make it past the round of 8, or doesn't make it too, he's going to rank in the round of 8 regardless. I think whether it's on points or, but he's not in the final 4. Let's just say, let's go back in the hypothetical machine here and say he doesn't make the final 8. The final 8. That's when you're gonna have to scratch your head and say, well, what did they do incorrectly? Because the margin of error for them has been quite low all season long, and years gone by as well. Harvick, if anything, it's just been one of the most consistent drivers in a time period, in any time frame, any time period. I've never seen anyone, even Gordon at the height of his success, Jimmie Johnson. I'm not even sure they've had the pinpoint accuracy that Harvick's been able to roll off since 2014. And I think that's just a testament to a guy that worked really hard, and that's why he made the move to Stewart-Haas Racing. It wasn't just to leave an unsatisfactory situation with RCR. It was to reinvent himself and to put himself in this position where he can compete for wins in championships, and it's worked. And so this will kind of transition to the next guy, his teammate Aric Almirola. This is why he decided to make the move. This is why he wanted to be a part of Stewart-Haas Racing. 13th place run. Heartbreak at the end. He loses the lap. He loses. It's just heartbreak for him. He loses the lead late in the race, as late as 393. He leads 64 laps. Seems on his way to certain victory, and he's been and he was talking about it in some of his social media accounts this week. How he was fired up. He was ready to go. He had Dover circled on his calendar. He saw this as a tremendous opportunity to take the checkered flag for the first time in a long time. Win with Stewart-Haas Racing. I would put all 4 cars in the winner's circle in 2018 rather. And heartbreak, man. He's just, for whatever reason, just can't get it done. Fails to win the race. You see the disappointment in the end. Talladega and Kansas, potentially. I mean, I can see him winning. I know there's not a lot of time left, and there's a lot of great drivers that are fighting for the wins. over these next 6 events, and it'd be so hard to say that he's one of those guys that you're going to say, well, he's a lock to win. And he's not necessarily. However, I think I wouldn't sleep on him. And he has the will to win. You're seeing that this team has improved so much. At this 10 car, I want to see where this 10 car is a year from now. I think we're going to be here a year from now talking about this 10 car. And I think it's going to be a total 180. I think this team is just going to get even better. I can't, as crazy as that sounds, I think this team is going to improve tremendously in 2019. Just great things ahead for Mr. Aric Almirola. Breakout season, regardless. You know what, if this happens, if he doesn't make this round of 8, let's say his season comes to an end in Kansas, the championship bid is over, I'd say this win a solid B plus for Aric Almirola. B. He has just performed extremely well behind this car. He's 24 points above the cutoff line going into Talladega. As you know, his record at Talladega has been fairly positive and has run really well there in recent years with Richard Petty Motorsports, a team that doesn't quite have the equipment of a Stuart Haas, as we know. That's why he has left that team. Man, I think he's going to be another driver. Just don't sleep on him in the next 2 races. I'm telling you, he'll sneak up on you. Aric Almirola could find himself, man, competing for this championship before it's all said and done. You just never know. So Truex Jr., here we go. 15th place run, so we have to go the tale of 2 races always. You're going to have guys who perform tremendously and then the guys who sort of hit a wall and just struggle. And Truex Jr. has had a sensational playoff, has he not? On his way to certain win at the Roval. We talked about that nauseum 2 weeks ago, this Roval. We're not talking about it anymore. We all know what happened in that last lap. So he hasn't won since Kentucky in July. Again, we talked about Harvick not winning. We talked about this Big Three's dominance. They haven't really been too dominant lately, have they? Kyle Busch, Richmond, the only one of the Big Three dogs to win recently. And you have Harvick, who hasn't won since August. And we're going back to Truex Jr., who hasn't won since July at Kentucky. Panic in the 78 camp? Maybe. I don't know. I'm not there. We're not there. We don't know. Does it look like it's lack of effort on their part? Hell no. They've had a solid playoff. They could have won. They could have won all these races thus far. All of them. Except for this one, maybe. They're in position. Richmond. Vegas. They're there. They have an equal opportunity to do it. The Roval. You know, they got to close the gap, I think. And the focus is shifting here. I know he won Kansas. He's very good at Kansas. He knows how to win there. He hasn't ever won at Talladega. This could be the wild card. This could be the turning point. This could be the race that determines if Truex Jr. This is going to be to me, this is the benchmark. We're gonna see the real Martin Truex Jr. how he can overcome adversity at Talladega. I'm not sure he's a lock for the Final Four, people. I think you'll all say, peeps, hey, it's Truex Jr. It just feels, I don't want to play into it. I just really don't want to play into dirt sheet bullshit and rumor and innuendo, but it seems like ever since this team really announced their intentions, the focus has just shifted, where Truex Jr., I think, is giving it 110. He's just down. He's just laying back those 5-hour energies. Thanks, thanks for nothing. You're on your way out, but you got to still plug the sponsors while they're still on the car, on the quarter panels, right? Not on the front of the hood. I think he's at that level where he's in the zone. Things for him are looking up. They're looking peachy, right? He's on his, on his way to Joe Gibbs. He's going to be part of a powerhouse team next year. But the transformation in himself and Furniture Row, again, hard to really turn the other way with that, turn the blind eye to that. And now maybe the team's focus is just finish out the year see what happens. I don't think Truex got that mentality. I think Truex wants to win this thing. He wants to go out as a champion, defend the championship that he won last year at Homestead, Miami. But man, I think that could be closing in on him, man. He can't execute. He's just unable to close the deal lately, and it's these missed opportunities that they're going to look back on and say, what if? And I'm just saying, don't think he's a lock for that Final Four, maybe that Final 8, maybe even 2, that round of 8. Don't quite pencil him in yet. Clint Bowyer. So Clint likes to make things interesting, does he not? So he finishes 35th here. Read a report somewhere he blames himself for costing Eric Almirola, his teammate, the race. The wreck he was in brought up the last caution, sent Eric back to 6th on the restart. Again, a little hard on yourself there, Clint. I think it's a racing deal. It's not like he had intended to have this happen. You would know under no circumstance, I don't think, would he cost a teammate a victory or a chance to advance to the playoff round. But it happened, and Chase Elliott won the race. Eric Almirola did not. You move on from that. And Bowyer, I think, he's just on familiar ground again. Here he is. He starts out the playoffs with his back to the wall. Round 2, same fashion. And here we are. Just Talladega, total wild card. He's never won at Kansas. So, you know, in probably a situation where if Talladega doesn't go, you know, if he doesn't end up in the winner's circle at Talladega, Kansas becomes an all or nothing race. And looking at his past statistics there and the way he's run there, it's probably not going to happen for him. So this could have been not only cost Eric Almirola the win, as he points out, which I still will say I'll defend him. He did not. It's a racing deal. This could have ended his season, mind you. Not necessarily Almirola, but his. And the 2-time Talladega winner, I know he won at Talladega twice in the fall. But that was a long time ago, and that was RCR. He could be a factor in this on Sunday, but I think he has to win to get into that round of 8. I don't think he's going to be able to get by in the points. He's put himself in that position again where he was lucky to escape the Roval and get into this round. I think the sands and the hourglass are going to run out on Clint Bowyer, and you're going to see him not advance to the round of 8. That's just me freestyling, giving you my opinion. But that's where we are. And we're going to shift now gears here. We're going to shift away from the aftermath of Dover, Delaware. And I read a story this week. I saw it on Twitter, on ESPN. And I thought this is total... Again, when it comes to head scratchers, and this is just cementing. This is the writing on the wall, is it not? Daniel Suarez gets a new crew chief for the final 6 races. That's Dave Rogers. Guy he worked with in his rookie season for the first 5 races. I don't know what happened there, but quickly relieved of his duties and that role for Scott Graves, a more familiar face that Suarez was quite comfortable working with and had great chemistry with in the Xfinity Series. They won the championship together in 2016. Scott Graves is a tremendous crew chief. He was a former Roush Fenway product, won the title with Ricky Stenhouse in 2015, served as his crew chief for 1 season in Cup before serving on the pit box for Suarez for the last year and a half. Well, better part of a year, because now he's not even going to make these next 6 races. So, shit, man. This just is the final domino to fall in this whole Daniel Suarez JGR saga. We know he's not coming back. You know, judging by the hiring today of Matt DiBenedetto to Levine Family, a team that Suarez was heavily linked to a few weeks back, that ain't happening either. So Suarez could end up, as I said, walking away from this a winner. If he gets the 41 car with Sturt Haas, I think it's a tremendous upgrade from what he's doing at JGR in the 19. As I said, I think the straw that breaks the camel's back here. Scott Graves no longer a part of JGR, effective immediately. Suarez finished 10th at Dover. So that crazy streak we talked about at Dover last week, it continues. Daniel Suarez, man, I think for whatever reason or another, digs that place, gets around there tremendously. Man, oh man, just statistics like that just blow my mind because for whatever reason or other, he loves Dover, Delaware. Loves himself some of that monster mile. So this was his, as I said, the second year, so to speak, technically that Graves is working with Suarez. It's just, to me, this is a dumb fuck move that makes no sense. You're going to, a driver that's not returning to this car, a crew chief that's probably wasn't going to stay on board either. So you're basically kicking the guy out. 6 races to go. I don't fucking get this. Excuse the language, but I don't fucking get this. And no, I'm going to try to get it. I'm not. And you replace him with a guy that you replaced him with in the first place. So it's just that's come full circle, has it not? And so he's, like I said, he's tremendous crew chief in Xfinity. Has won the championship. This is just a puzzling move. It just very, very baffling, and it comes out of left field, seems like. So Rogers, as I said, is reunited with Suarez. For what it's worth, you want to call this a happy reunion? Probably not. The first 5 races of the 2017 season where he was a rookie. Rogers, as we know, a longtime JGR employee, has had tremendous success, won a lot of races. So he started, as I said, he started out as a crew chief with JGR in 2005, with Jason Leffler in the number 11 car. God rest his soul, Jason Leffler. We miss that fella, don't we? Was he not a great driver? Was he not? I think he was. 271 races, 18 wins, top 5s, top 5s, he's got 85, top 10s, he's got 134. And I said he's been on the pit box for Jason Leffler, Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, Carl Edwards. Some really good drivers, and he's been in the thick of championship battles with Carl and Kyle. It's just a move that, to me, you let Graves and Suarez finish the year together. And I know they're probably not on anyone's radar to win. And if they won, it would really matter anyway. It just, again, padding their stats. It looks good for them. But we all know who's coming in, who's moving in. New digs for Truex Jr. and his crew chief, Cole Perrin. And you look at it as the head scratcher. That's all I can say. It's just, this makes no fucking sense to me. So JGR, I mean, this 19 car has been a shit show, has it not? I mean, you look at Carl Edwards, who, and I don't try to believe in rumor and innuendo. I try not to read into dirt sheets. I try not to read people's Twitter and people who like to make up fake news, for lack of a better term. But it's just so suspect that Carl Edwards is, I think, forced into retirement, or that came out of left field too. That was just bizarre, was not? And then you have Suarez, who's just kind of thrust into it, fresh off his championship victory in Xfinity, and I thought could have defended the title and even went for a second title. But in any way, he ended up in Cup. In any event, he's made the most of it. I think we have yet to see the best of Daniel Suarez, and I'm really pulling for him. I hope he gets that ride with Stewart-Haas and rolls off wins, because I know him in that behind the wheel of that car, he's going to do great things if he gets a chance to run with those guys. And I think it's going to be just look what it's done for Eric Almirola, right? Clint Boyer is outhouse to penthouse. And Suarez, I want this to happen for the Pride of Mexico. Let's do this. So we're going to shift here. Matt Kenseth has indicated at Dover that he won't likely race in 2019. That highly likely that he will turn his final laps at Homestead, Miami, and Florida in a few weeks. He was brought back in May for Rush Friend Racing. Sorry, I think is nostalgic pop. I think the 6 car was in a real rut. They weren't finding answers. They weren't finding speed with Trevor Bayne. So the Trevor Bayne experiment, I think, had run its course. There was no one really available at the time to flat out release Bayne. He had the commitments with Advocare, the sponsor. So I think just flat out releasing him was not a viable option for Jack Roush and company. So I think You bring in the name Kenseth, and they had a great relationship. Kenseth, I think, and I'm going to go out in my opinion. That's just in my opinion, people. I think Kenseth's the second greatest driver to Mark Martin ever to ever race for Roush Fenway at any capacity. I know we had Carl Edwards. Greg Biffle did some good things there too. You had Kurt Busch win the championship when he was with them. Jeff Burton was phenomenal, was he not? And Jeff Burton enjoyed tremendous success with Roush Fenway when they were known as Roush Racing. But I think Matt Kenseth almost gets by Mark Martin as the best Roush driver of all time. But it's loyalty for him again. I think he's back. He came back to the 6 car as a favor to a guy who elevated his career and made who he was in NASCAR. It's called for what it is. I think Matt Kenseth wouldn't have been Matt Kenseth without the help of Jack Roush. Him and Robbie Reiser, when they were together, got a tremendous break to race for Roush in the 17 car and won championships together and just made a great accounting of themselves. And so 12 starts in 2018. Best finish was 12th at Indianapolis. Even led the race for a little bit. So, I mean, the average finish is 21.8. Not terrible, but was he expected to come in there and really light it up? No, he was not. This was just, again, a bandage. This was a Band-Aid on a cut. Stop the bleeding. The 6 car was in total disarray and chaos. Matt Kenseth is there to work with the team, try to make that car look respectable, and he's done a good job of doing that. It just didn't quite produce the results I think that people were anticipating. Came out there with a new sponsor campaign. It was rolling out the red carpet. It just didn't quite gel. It seemed like something, as I said, a nostalgic pop, something of a faded memory of days gone by. It's like when you get out that old t-shirt, right? An old t-shirt you used to wear, maybe a NASCAR t-shirt, maybe it had Ken Schrader and the Skull Bandit on it, or Ernie Irvin in the Texaco car, or Tide car for Ricky Rudd. Just something that brings you back to another place in time. And you're like, that was a great time. But it can never duplicate just complete, utter bliss or tremendous feelings or magic pop. The pop, that magic you're looking for cannot be duplicated. And I think they went that way with Kenseth and it just didn't work out. It's nice to see him behind the wheel. I think it was really good on Jack for bringing him back, because I think the way he left at Joe Gibbs was also complete crap too, man. I think he didn't get a chance to really end his career on his own terms. As you said, last season, he was quite non-committal about what he was going to do. I think he truly never wanted to be out of the car. I think the Eric Jones era was ushered in a little prematurely. I think another year at Furniture Row, maybe in that car to 77, we'd be talking about Furniture Row in a different light right now, would we not? And I think Kenseth really got a raw deal at the end of Joe Gibbs, and he did a lot for Joe Gibbs as well. And I think it's just, but he felt more as always to me a Roush guy, and he will always be. To me, when I think of Matt Kenseth, I'll think of Robbie Reiser, the DeWalt number 17, black and yellow car. That's who Matt Kenseth is. Not the 20 Husky Tools or Home Depot, Dollar General, whatever it is. For whatever reason, he had a lot of success with Joe Gibbs as well. But just, to me, he's always going to be a Roush guy. Just as Mark Martin's always going to be a Roush guy. So, if indeed his career does end, as he said, he doesn't... And this is the press release. It says from Dover itself, from J-Ski and ESPN. Kenseth said he has no plans to race again in NASCAR Cup season after the season. It doesn't mean that he won't. So again, I mean, if someone were to go down, let's say, to an injury, Stenhouse, Ryan Newman, he could be a guy that is on Jack Roush's speed dial. Hey, we need a sub. We need someone to come in and race the car. I think he would be more than glad to accept that role, only if he's put in that position, right? But only if he says here, if Roush calls and needs a driver, he could. Kenseth, 46. It says even sees himself probably stepping back behind the wheel. Probably, okay, as it says here, even see himself probably stepping back behind the wheel for number 18 at the Homestead. This is it, right? So last year, November, he said he had no plans to race again, but wasn't sure whether that plan would last a few months or a couple years. And we said he was very non-committal at this time last year, was still figuring out really what to make. Because it came to a shock to a lot of people that he was going to be let go from JGR. I think that felt incomplete, considering the first year you go out there, you tear it up, you finish runner-up in the points, you win 7 races, and it amounts to nothing. I think that was a shell shock for him, and it just was never the same for Matt Kenseth and JGR. So here it says here, as we said, he joined Roush in May to run 15 of the final 25-point races, sharing this car with Trevor Bayne. As Kenseth stood by his car Saturday at Dover, the 2003 champion sounded a little more definitive that he didn't want to race again. As this is what he said. This is from Kenseth from the press release. I have no plans to drive, Kenseth said. I said that if I did drive, I probably would be for Roush. I don't have any plans on doing that, though, either. I don't really have plans to do anything. It says, I don't really have plans to do any driving at this point. So that sounds like a guy who's pretty absolute about his decision not to race again. Kenseth said that it would be hard to compare his feelings now from a year ago when he was being replaced at Joe Gibbs Racing and couldn't land a ride if he wanted with another top team. So that's the point where it got where this sport now, that the name value is not going as far as it used to. A big name like Matt Kenseth with a lot of the young up-and-coming drivers coming in and teams taking a different approach to combinations of drivers and sponsors and what works best for them for marketing. And I think what makes sense for the future, a guy like Matt Kenseth, even though he's a champion and he's won races, is not on anyone's radar. Sort of seen his time in the sun, and no one's breaking down that door, man. And so he says, at this time last year, this is from Kenseth, I wasn't really looking for a ride necessarily anymore. When asked if this is different than a year ago, that's a hard question, he said, to answer, because that was a different situation. I had a really, really good winter months before I came back. So it looked like I think this is the last we've seen of Matt Kenseth, and that's just my personal opinion. I think we are not going to see him again in full-time in a race car, or even maybe at any capacity. And as I said, Kenseth said, there's a good and bad in everything. It was good to come back and see what was going on and work with a little bit, but it's really good to be at home too. I'm ready to be home more. It's hard being gone. It's hard missing all that stuff with the kids growing up, and I just don't want to miss any more of it. So, yeah, reading from this press release, I just don't think that this is a guy that peace with his career, right? He's had a great career. So I think if he never races again, from 2000 to 2018, great career. He's sixth. This is when it's all said and done. This is it at Homestead, Miami. This is what he finishes with: 665 career starts. That's 21st all time at this moment. As press release of this podcast on the all time wins list, just 2 behind Joe Nemechek. 39 wins. That's 21st on the all time wins lead of the wins list. He's at top 5s, 181, top 10s, 327, poles 20. And he is the 2003 champion. And as I said, in my honest opinion, one of the greatest, the second greatest driver to ever race for Roush Fenway. And his 2003 championship was the first for Jack Roush as an owner. Kurt would do it a year later. He was the rookie of the year in 2000. It was a highly contested rookie class that year. Edged out Dale Jr. 2000, his first career win was the 2000 Coke 600. He's won the Daytona 500 twice with Roush, 2009 and 2012. And that famous 2012 Monday night edition of the Daytona 500. That was pretty cool, was it not? And so we look in here, and there's been a lot here to talk about. But as he said, Kenseth will go on to say here, there's a lot of things I've really enjoyed about this return. Certainly, I felt like we were going to perform better than we have to this point. We've had one really good run, one decent run, and the rest haven't been all that good. I don't want to say it's been a little bit harder, but we haven't run as hard or run it as good as I thought. We haven't made quite the headway. I wish we would have made as sooner, but I feel lately that we've made a lot of ground. So the 6 car is in good position, I think, for next year. Ryan Newman's taking over that. When asked if he would still be involved in some way, maybe as a driver coach, Kenseth said, "Have you seen me drive lately?" So he's ribbing himself there. It's not you, Kenseth. It's the car. Trust me. He said he doesn't know how much that he'll be involved in racing, and it has nothing on the table or in the works for himself at the moment. And as he went on to say, "You never know what's going to happen. I didn't think that I would be doing this 5 months ago either, so who knows?" So, as I said, it looks like this is a time when Matt Kenseth is going to be officially, again, you never want to say retirement in this sport. Like I said, Jeff Gordon, quote-unquote, retired. He went back in the next year and subbed for Dale Jr. But I think that is the end of Matt Kenseth. I think we've seen all we're going to see of him, and one of the all-time greats, and I think a future Hall of Famer, absolutely. And it's good to see that he did return to the track, even at the limited capacity this season, even if it didn't produce the results that we thought it would, and it was still great to see him. So, and we were talking about another career coming to an end, maybe unofficially, but officially this week, as Kahne. It appears as Kasey Kahne's NASCAR career is over. He will not be in the 95 for the remainder of the season. He has not raced that car since Darlington, as he sat out the whole entire playoffs, really, with heat exhaustion issues, well, before the playoffs as well at Indy. He sat out with hydration issues. It just wasn't a good place for Kasey. I guess he feels that he wasn't medically cleared to be back in this car, wanted to come back and have one last hurrah here for Levine family, but it's not going to happen, as Kasey Kahne announced earlier in the summer that he would step away from Cup racing, full-time commitments in 2019, despite efforts that Levine Family Racing offered him a 2-year deal that he turned down, and even turned down potentially taking over the 41 car for Stewart-Haas Racing. And you know how coveted that car would be for a guy like Kasey Kahne. That could have turned his career around. That could have been Kasey Kahne's chance to revitalize a career that was really on the back end, right? However, that just shows that he was absolutely content with stepping away. He wants to do a lot of dirt racing. As you know, he's really into racing another series that doesn't involve the grueling schedule or the pressure that goes with Cup racing on a weekly basis. So he struggled in recent years, only 2 wins in the last 5 years. But he was Captain Clutch. Man, who could forget Indianapolis in 2017 and then Atlanta in 2014. He never really lived up to the expectation. I think that when he went to Hendrick, the first season was breakout year for him. Did so well. To me, I thought that was a table. He was just setting the table for something great. Had a good 2013 season too, but just never quite could capture the success that he maybe wanted to attain with Hendrick. And with that name, it's just that name. It's that brand, that value that you're racing for Rick Hendrick. This is going to be automatic. You're going to be running for championships and rolling off wins week by week. It's not necessarily the case. As you saw Chase Elliott, look how long it's taken him to finally reach his potential in that car. It just, for whatever reason, it didn't work for Kahne. So his best year, as I said, with the team was in 2012, his first season where you captured 2 victories, 12 top 5s, 19 top 10s, 4 poles, and was 4th in the standings. And he would only win 4 more times over the next 5 years with Hendrick. So disappointing, to say the least. Made the playoffs 3 times afterwards, after the 2012 season. He never finished higher than the top. He never finished higher than top 3. And he never finished. He never finished higher than 3rd in his top 5 finishes since 2013, and there weren't many of them. He had only 1 pole he only had 1 pole in the final 5 seasons with Hendrick. So the cars really couldn't really get up to speed. They weren't as fast as maybe some of his teammates, and he was fired from Hendrick in August of last year, and then would sign with Levine Family for 2018. And 25 races with Levine Family Racing in 2018. He had no wins, one top 5 and one top 10. That was the best finish of his season, was 4th at Daytona in the Coke 0400. And in 15 years of his career, which spanned from 2004 to 2008, he drove for Ray Evernham. He was one of Ray Evernham's younger drivers back then. That transition from Gillette Evernham, and then Gillette Evernham's transition to Richard Petty Motorsports. Did the one-off year for Red Bull as they were exiting the sport, Hendrick, and then the 25 here for Levine Family. In his career, it's a great career, I think. It's not Hall of Fame worthy, I don't think. Unfortunately, Kahne never quite reached those heights in his career, but still a great driver nonetheless. I think he's one of those guys that you're going to look back and say was a good driver, but not a great driver. 18 wins, 93 top 5s, 176 top 10s, 27 times he sat on the pole. As his career comes to an end at the press date of this podcast, 529 career starts, 37th on the all-times list here for Cup. He also here is his 18 wins have him 50th on the all-time win list, tied with Ryan Newman, Neil Bonnet, Jeffrey Bodine, and Herder Gant. That's some pretty elite company to be in there. Some really great names in the sport. And he was 4th in 2012, as we said, in his first season with the Hendrick Motorsports, rolling off 2 wins. But the most he ever won in races in his career in a season was 6th in 2006, where he would finish 8th in the standings for Ray Evernham. And as I said, he won the 2004 Rookie of the Year with Ray Evernham Motorsports. So let's just look now, as I like to say, it's the portion where we're going to examine top 5. What do you say? Top 5. So the top 5 Kasey Kahne defining career moments, I guess you could say. And these are some really good ones that I thought. As I looked at, you could put Rockingham when he won the truck race. That was pretty cool. Some of his Xfinity wins, winning at Sonoma with Richard Petty, 3-time Coke 600 champion. But these are the 5 definitive races or definitive victories, I think, that when you look back on Kasey Kahne and say, well, that was a definitive Kasey Kahne win. So 2011, when he wins, he's working with crew chief Kenny Francis. He's on the back end, longtime crew chief Kenny Francis, and I think he's worked the best with. That was his best crew chief he's ever worked with, in my opinion. And I think a lot of people would agree with that sentiment there. 2011, Phoenix. He wins a race for Red Bull. He's a rental, as you know. Left RPM under some pretty catastrophic circumstances after that Charlotte race in 2010. Ran the rest of the year for Red Bull. Ran the whole season for them in 2011. It was a rental, as we knew he was going to be signing on with Hendrick for 2012. So he made the most of this season. And a season that could have just been a write-off that, you know what, this is a team that's leaving the sport. Didn't know that quite at the time of 2011. Like in the beginning of the season, we weren't aware that, fuck, these guys are out of here. But he never treated that as if this was a, fuck, I'm out of here. He gave it his all, raced, and some of the stats from 11 were fantastic for Red Bull Racing. And he wins a race here at Phoenix, second to last race. Again, on paper it means nothing, but I think it meant a lot that Red Bull went out as a winner. Kasey Kahne always gave a good effort at this team. They left the sport at the end of the year. Kahne wins the next to last race, as we said. And he was the best driver. Every year in the playoffs, you have a driver that doesn't qualify that I think just excels. He was that driver in 2011. In that 10-race span, he put up some great numbers. And that says a lot about his driving style. To finish 14th in the final standings and his grit, true grit. He never gave up. You know, there was nothing to gain here. Absolutely nothing to gain. He was on his way to Hendrick. Red Bull was packing up. See you later. But Kahne still raced as if this team would have been together for 2012 and beyond, and he put a lot of effort and heart and soul into this. That's why that's, to me, very memorable victory for him. Number 4, following of our top 5, that's someone will know what the top 5 means. You know who you are. Following his 6 run-up finishes, he wins his first career win at Cup at Richmond in the spring of 2005. Wins that from the pole. Pretty cool statistic here. His first 3 Cup wins were from the pole. And actually, out of 3 of the first, I think, 5 or 4. It was like, anyway, great statistic where he'd won the pole 4 times in 5 races, 3 to start off his career. You know, that was the height of his season in 2005. I mean, his rookie season was great, but he kind of had a little bit of a sophomore jinx in 2005, despite not winning in 2004. 2004 was a better season for him than 2005 was. And winning that race was the height of his season, and a pretty much dismal season in 2005. And Kasey Kahne would score his first win after 6 frustrating runner-up finishes. Like I said, who knows what could have been with Kasey? But Kasey, I think, is one of those drivers that had he had a little more time and capitalized on some opportunities, right place, right time, we could be talking about a championship driver or a hell of a lot more wins than he did win. But 18, that's no number to shake your head at either. So the third would be his win in the 2012 Coke 600. This was impressive. I mean, this is his first win for Hendrick. He was 32nd in the points as far as early as Bristol in the spring. And then you had yourself looking in, was this the right move for Kasey Kahne? He started off really sluggish, notoriously slow starter, started really sluggish out of the gate for Hendrick. Is on his way to a career year in 2012. So you look back where they were week after week, and they weren't dazzling numbers in 2012 that worked him up to that 4th place finish. He just remained, again, that grit, that heart, that consistency that Kahne delivered, brought this team from a situation that could have been catastrophic, and it turned out to be. His Hendrick run, I don't think when you poll anyone's going to say his Hendrick run, you're going to call that Hendrick run successful, because it was not really. Let's call it for what it is. That run was average at best, and above average, if you will. But just never quite gelled for Kahne and Hendrick. But for him to work his way to 4th in the points, seemed dead out of the water in the spring. Just pick at it, chip away at it. You find yourself 4th in the end. That's pretty incredible. And Captain Clutch, this is number 2. Captain Clutch, take 1. I remember watching this race, and again, nothing fancy about it. Just really simplicity at its best. But those are the best things in life, right? Simple. Keep it real. Simple. Simplicity. So he wins in dramatic fashion here at Atlanta. His back's to the wall all season, fighting around, hovering on the playoff cutoff line. So this is August 2014. We're taking you back. He claims the position in the playoffs. Second to last race of the regular season. Dramatic fashion. This would be a walk-off in baseball. The Hail Mary. Pretty much knowing you got to win these next 2 races to get in. He gets into the playoffs, trades the lead back with Matt Kenseth late in the race. These guys went at it. Only leads 25 laps. This is pretty well a clutch performance. Kenseth at himself at the time was also fresh off a career year with JGR, found himself with no wins the next season, fighting for his chance to get into the playoffs, because I think he was good on points. But again, it looks a lot more stylish. You get in there with the victory, getting in on points puts you already behind the 8 ball, and you're figuring out, well, these teams have won a race this year, so what am I doing different? Kahne has a great battle with Kenseth down the stretch, overtakes him, goes on to claim the checkers. That was a pretty cool moment. That one to be, we're going to cover that race sometime, I think, at some point in the history of this program, but that was a hell of a win, and that was how you get it done. So number 1, Captain Clutch, take 2. To me, this is the finale for Kasey. This is his curtain call for Hendrick. So, as you know, he won Indy not this year, but the year before, 2017. Again, more playoff heroics. Half the field's taken out, as we know. That race was just a giant demolition derby. Indianapolis, really, at that time, has had issues with tires. And that track, I think, not to say, it is what it is. It's a legendary track, right? But I just never really think, for me, it's one of the crown jewel races in NASCAR. You want to win the Brickyard. It's the ambiance and the thrill of winning at Indianapolis. But for whatever reason or another, Kahne survives the wreckage. Again, it's not a fancy win. It's just right place, right time. Hampered by poor luck for most of the season. His future was starting to be called into question, into doubt. Well, is the Hendrick-Kahne experiment over? So he goes out there, survives it, stays with it, wins the race. This is Keith Rodden, his crew chief at the time. His first Cup win as a crew chief. They took them a while to get on the same page. And then, again, what happens after, I think, makes this win so epic and will go down in history. He did nothing in the playoffs. It was one of those, it's nice to be nominated. Here we are. We're in. Had no shot in hell at winning anything. I think the team at that point, he would be fired in August of that year. I think shortly after this race, he got fired. They knew that, I think, going in. But this was his one last shot of glory. Wins the race at Indy. Puts himself in the playoffs one last time for Hendrick. And then Rodden didn't even last the season. He's replaced by Darian Grubb down the stretch. So Captain Clutch, man, he knows when to win. He knew when to win in big moments, and he came up here and got himself in the playoffs twice when I think people had written off this team and his future. Again, probably he knew, and I think he's alluded to that in Dale Jr.'s podcast, where he knew he was out of here. I mean, you see the headlines day in, day out on the internet. You see them in social media feeds. They're pretty much telling you, gone, dude. And he knew that. But it never wavered him for 1 minute. That's the true dying, like I said, the true grit, the desire. He raced it as if he was going to be back in the car in 2018. You just cast that aside. You focus on business. He got it done. He's taking care of business, put himself into the playoffs. Absolutely incredible. We're going to miss Kasey Kahne, old blue eyes. I hope he has a great retirement. It'd be nice to see him in a Cup race or maybe an Xfinity race or a truck race down the line. But it just seems, if you read into it, and I know a lot of smart marks are going to read into this, that he's medically cleared. He's able to go back. Regan Smith is a super sub, yes, and he's done a tremendous job in that car. I'm going to give a call out to Regan Smith. He's done great for what it's worth in that family, Levine Family Racing 95. Some top 20 finishes, doing a tremendous job in that car. I mean, I think Regan is still one of those guys that, hey, would somebody still give him a chance? Why not? I think he can still get something done in that car. 7,500 winner. Let's go. But anyhow, I hope Kane has a great retirement. I hope he enjoys himself off the track, and we're going to miss old Blue Eyes, as I said, but I think you're going to look back at his career, and he was one hell of an entertainer, and he gave it his all week in and week out, and we're going to have just wait and see what's next for Kasey Kahne, but it looks like it appears that the curtain has fallen on his NASCAR Monster Energy Cup Series career. So Levine Family, his current team, they're very topical in the news today. They've hired their new driver for 2019. Surfaced in social media reports throughout the week, into last week, into this week, that Matthew DiBenedetto, the People's Champ, is going to take over the number 95 car in 2019. Bit of a head scratcher. I think this one we're going to dissect a little here, and it's got its pros and its cons like everything, right? So DiBenedetto is so popular with this whole People's Champ moniker that he's sort of adopted in recent years, where lovable loser, whatever, underdog story. We want to see DiBenedetto do well. And so he gets an opportunity here. So it's made official that now on October the 10th that he is the driver. Levine Family has also switched manufacturers for 2019. They're going to go Toyota and are in a technical alliance with Joe Gibbs Racing. So this is a reunion of sorts for JGR and Matthew DiBenedetto, as he ran 7 Xfinity races for them in 2009 and 2010. And he'll be 27 only in 2019. So lots of time, loads of potential here for a young driver to cut his teeth, and let's just see what he really has, what he has, excuse me, what he has, giving another opportunity. And I think, Go Fast and BK, not to disparage them, but even Levine Family, I still think is not a top-notch team in this sport, but I think the alliance with Gibbs is going to help them improve their stuff, and let's just see what DiBenedetto can do now. I think he was, we're going to get to that in a minute, but he's had 4 years in Cup full-time. He spent 2015 and 16 with BK Racing. His career best for him was 6th place at Bristol in the spring race of 16. That was a career best for him and also the soon-to-be defunct BK Racing. Last 2 seasons, he's raced with Go Fast, and he's recorded 3 top 10 finishes. 9th at the 2017 Daytona 500, the 8th at Indy in 2017, because that was a clusterfuck of a race, and then 7th in 2018 at the Coke Zero 400. So in September DiBenedetto announced that he and Go Fast had mutually parted ways, that he wanted to go in a different direction. Go Fast seemed to be content with having him behind the wheel, and DiBenedetto just said, "Hey, man, I want to be competitive. I want to run an equipment that I feel I can race for championships or race for victories." And he's a racer. Why in the hell not? What you wanted that? What guy aspires to be a race car driver and says, "Hey, I want to run in the back. I don't want to run well. I want to be at the tail end of the field. That's what I want to do." And it's not Matthew DiBenedetto. He came out and said, "You know what? I'd rather not race in this car, 32. I want to race for a competitive team." He saw with guys like Ross Chastain were doing, Ryan Preece, putting themselves in some of his peers putting themselves in position to run for teams that are not exactly Hendrick or Stuart Haas, but have an opportunity to put yourself in better equipment and run up front, as opposed to running in 30th every week, struggling to even find speed. So DiBenedetto, that People's Champ moniker, I think they're going to rally behind him here. And this is a great story. You got two underdogs teaming up. Leavine family, for what they're worth, they're an underdog team as well. Got a little help from Joe Gibbs. And you got the guy who I think, at only 27 in 2019, still hasn't even scratched the surface yet. How good can Matthew DiBenedetto be? It's only as good as far as his equipment's going to take him, right? And I think, to me, this is an okay signing. I'm not going to say this is going to be the new Furniture Row. A guy that's going to go in here and turning things just on, head over heels already. And that's not going to happen. I think DiBenedetto, if anything, can improve his performance by 5 points. 5 positions in the point standings. Maybe top 20. That's great. That, to me, is a true win for them, because you're surfing back. I know it's a different manufacturer, different time, but you had Kasey Kahne in this car this season, and before his issues with his health, really didn't generate a lot of excitement here. It didn't really generate the results either. So how good is this equipment? Well, they're throwing away the manufacturer. No longer Chevy Team Toyota. The alliance with Joe Gibbs, it seemed to serve a purpose well for Furniture. Could this be the new Furniture? And I even said that with Kahne. If you gave Kahne maybe another year in this car, could he have reached the heights Truex Jr. did? Because when Truex Jr. first went through Furniture Row, a lot of people turned the other eye, turned a blind eye at that one, man. They say, you know what? Truex Jr.'s career is dead. This guy's left for dead. Guy wins a championship and becomes an elite driver. I'm not saying this is going to be Matthew DiBenedetto or this was even going to be Kasey Kahne, but it has that feel to it. It has that potential, does it not? So it's a courageous move for both. I think very bold move for both in parties, Leavine and Mr. DiBenedetto here. The JGR Alliance, I said, could jolt fire much needed into this team. As I said, could become a Furniture Row type team. Maybe not reach the heights Furniture Row did, but sort of be in that conversation. So Leavine, they entered the Cup ranks back in 2011 with truck standout David Starr. They ran 4 races. Michael McDowell run this car from 2014 to 17. He was replaced in favor of Kahne in 2018. And Regan Smith has done a great job subbing for Kahne since Indianapolis, who's been out of the car. Kane's departure left the team looking for a driver. As we all know, Daniel Suarez and even Daniel Hemrick, the tale of two Daniels there, were rumored to this car before the signing of DiBenedetto. And since 2011, this team has never scored a win, 2 top 5s, and 6 top 10 finishes. So they all can go up. Their performance is only going to go up here, I think. Those numbers, they're not going to get any better. I mean, they're only going to get better. They can't get any worse, right? So the top 5s are courtesy of McDowell, who finished 4th at the 2017 Daytona 500, and for Kahne, who finished 4th in 2018 edition of the Coke Zero 400. Their first ever top 10 was recorded by Scott Speed. That's a name you haven't heard in a long time, have we not? Just a quick update if you're not in the loop on Scott Speed. He's done really well in rally racing. He's gone on to win championships and revitalized his career. Good for him. I mean, fizzled out from F1 and fizzled out here in the Cup Series in NASCAR. Won a truck race at Dover, several years ago, and it's really cool to see that Scott Speed life after NASCAR was good to Mr. Speed, and I think tremendous driver, charismatic, if not anything. And he got that team's first top 10. It was a ninth at the spring race at Talladega in 2013. So they have to improve their overall performance. You look at all their statistics, and I don't want to be be the guy that's bumming bumming people out, or I'm saying this is being negative when it comes to this signing or this team's future. But the super speedways, much like a lot of the smaller teams, that's where they perform. That's where they've come to play, and they got to improve their oval performance and week to week performance. Not just on day. Just you don't want to be circling Talladega and Daytona and saying this is the only time we can compete for wins. You want to have that feeling every weekend. You want to go in every race and say, hey, this could be our weekend. I'm pretty sure Levine Family Racing comes in and says, hey, we only can win Daytona and Talladega. It's not their objective, trust me. I know it's not. And I think if they can improve that with JGR, work closely with what they're doing, see Matthew DiBenedetto have career numbers in 2019. I'm not going to say he's going to win. I don't believe firmly that much in this decision or this pairing to say that he's going to win anything. But I think the numbers have to improve. They only can improve. I just can't see it. This being, something that's going to take him to the next level. But I think it's a good starting place for him. And as I said, only 27 years old next year. Mr. DiBenedetto's got a lot of future in front of him. The People's Champ, does he not? And one of the other stories that I guess shocked a lot of people today, shocked me for one. But lately, this sport is changing so much. Things change at a dime. It's an end of an era. So the longest running crew chief and driver pairing is no more at the end of 2018, as Chad Knaus will transition. He will serve as William Byron's crew chief in 2019. That's an interesting choice. What an interesting duo that's going to be. But when you look at the great combos, colossal combinations through the years, Magic and Kareem, the mega powers, Hogan and Savage, Luke and Laura of General Hospital fame, Jeter and the Yankees, and in NASCAR itself, Evernham Gordon. What a great pairing. I think Knaus and Johnson were only second to them, were they not? Julius Benedict, Vincent Benedict, twins, Arnold Schwarzenegger, DeVito. Some colossal combinations through the years. Peanut butter and jelly. Johnson and Knaus. Johnson Knaus is gone, man. Brady Belichick. I mean, we could go on and on here about great combinations in sports history, and that's what Johnson and Knaus were. It's just gone, man. I looked at the headline. I saw this, and I said to myself, what the hell? Let the guys, I don't know, it's a bad season, I guess, but as you said, it's got me unwound here. I think this is monumental. It's going to help Byron, right? But Johnson, I'm kind of feeling bad for Johnson. What happens to Jimmie now? And the issues he's had this year. My God. So you look at Johnson and Knaus, and they've got 17 years together with the 48 team, 7 championships, 81 career wins, 15 playoff appearances. They've never missed a playoff together. But this duo hit a wall in 18. The announcement with Lowe is not coming back. I think that was just, use their sponsors metaphor, a home improvement metaphor. This is when, the house started coming undone a little. Nails were buckling. The foundation was shifting. And that was a huge loss for them. Now that they look like they're on their way to a winless season, Johnson is facing his first winless season of his career, and it looks like each passing race, he just struggled at Dover. Another bad finish at Dover. You own that place, man. 11 wins, and you go in there, and you just look super uncompetitive. Talladega, this could be a chance to steal him, but I think that's the goal. I think this team's overall goal is just to win. To win one more. And I would be nice to see them do that. And I just don't know if that's at all going to be possible with the amount of time left. And I don't know. It's kind of sad. I think the end of an era for whether you are a fan of Johnson or not, or Knaus, or Hendrick for that matter. This is pretty monumental to see this team disintegrate virtually, and I'm not sure the methodology behind this either. But so Kevin Mindering, will serve as Johnson's crew chief in 2019. He has spent the last 3 seasons with Elliott Sadler, who is stepping away from the Xfinity car at the end of the season. So this was his 3 seasons of the job at JR Motorsports, working with Elliott Sadler, another veteran driver. So this is almost like a double swap. You got a rookie crew chief next year, and Mindering working with Johnson, polished veteran championship driver. So that's to try to jolt some excitement or electricity into the 48, because the 48 team is dead at this moment. This team is deader than Kelsey's fucking nuts at this point. 48 car is not even a threat on the track anymore. Once feared, Lowe's Home Improvement Chevrolet is now just, Are we lapping him? Or is this guy even on the lead lap? I mean, and it's sad to say for a champion, but I think that's just the narrative with Johnson this year. He's just not had speed, not looked good. The whole Roval incident, which we're not going to talk about, but whatever the case may be, Johnson's had a miserable year. Abysmal. And I think when on the other side of the coin, you got an out-of-this-world talent and a generational talent in William Byron, who now was going to reap the benefits of working from a season championship crew chief in Chad Knaus. Going to probably jolt his career, as his numbers in his rookie season have not been sparkling by any means. He struggled. For a guy that went in with a lot of fanfare and seemed like he was destined for great things, he adapted really well in the Truck Series. Should have been the champion there. Wins the Xfinity title. Gets promoted to Cup. Just didn't have the season that I think anyone ever expected William Byron to win anything this year, but the numbers are just bleh. So I think that's the whole reasoning why, or the motivation to pair up Knaus and Byron, is just to see really, are they trying to duplicate success? Are they trying to go back to the well? And I work with Everham too, and Everham and Gordon, and you see when he changed crew chiefs to Brian Weitzel in '99, and how well that worked for a while. And then Gordon, then said, how can Gordon not work with anyone other than Everham? Prove them wrong. So, I mean, that's not to say Johnson either, too. This Kevin Mindering could be someone that jolts new life into Johnson, that resurrects the career, if you will, of the champ. But I guess we're just going to have to find out on the track come next year. But Darian Grubb, who is the outgoing crew chief for William Byron, takes on the role as he's the outgoing crew chief. Will be the technical director for Hendrick, as he will. That guy's bounced around a lot, has he not? Darian Grubb is a crew chief. He goes from crew chief to the technical side of this, bouncing around like a ping pong ball. But nonetheless, here we go. This is some of the press release from Hendrick today, and that bold move. Chad and Jimmie, this is from Mr. Hendrick himself, will go down as one of the greatest combinations in sports history. Roll Tide on that, Hendrick. They define the odds by performing at a championship level for longer than anyone could have possibly imagined. What they've accomplished together has been absolutely remarkable and will be celebrated for generations. This has been an incredible storybook run, has it not? It has. The 47-year-old Knaus, who's competed in 17 seasons as Jimmie Johnson's crew chief with the 48 team, represents a long-running crew chief-driver relationship in NASCAR, and the pair won a record-tying 7 Cup championships together. As we said, they made the playoffs for a record 15 time, and then this is also from Mr. Hendrick. It's no secret that Chad and Jimmie Johnson, that is pronouns, have experienced their ups and downs over the years. They're fierce competitors, great friends, and have immense respect for one another. They also fight like brothers, and all three of us agree it's finally time for new challenges and that a change will benefit them and the organization. Chad Knaus actually worked for the 24 car here, which I didn't really know. I know he had crew chief for Stacey Compton in his rookie career with Melling, and was on the pit box for a few races for Casey Atwood prior to working with Johnson, but I had never heard the name Chad Knaus until then. But he worked with Hendrick's 24 team from 93 to 98. The Rockford, Illinois native assumed a variety of duties under the direction of crew chief and mentor Ray Evernham, and he oversaw body development and served as a tire changer for the 24 team, proving to be an integral part of the championship run for Jeff Gordon in 95 and 97. And it says, goes on to see here, this is all from Hendrick in this press release. You can't quantify how much Chad's leadership and championship experience will benefit William, who is a special talent. The two of them the two of them are a great match, and I'm excited to see what they can do together. Chad has the Rainbow Warriors pedigree and truly appreciates the history of the 24. I've asked him to build another winner and give him the green light to put his stamp on the team and do it his way. And as we said, we talked about Kevin Mindering, as he's 37, oversees Sadler's team for Hendrick Motorsports and affiliates of JR Motorsports in 3 seasons with the Xfinity Series. The Grand Rapids, Michigan native has led the veteran driver to three wins, 38 top 5 finishes, 75 top 10s, and is a 2017 and the 2017 regular season title. Before joining JRM, Mindering spent 16 years at Hendrick Motorsports, beginning with a high school internship in chassis development. In 2008, he was named the assistant engineer for the number 24 with Jeff Gordon, and in 2011 became the lead engineer for the 88 team with Dale Jr. And he also has a engineering degree from the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. And over the past couple of years, he's been one of the most, in the garage area, Minderen has, as I said, been one of those guys that people had their eyes on. And Kevin is an impressive person, as Mr. Hendrick will say, who's came up to the organization and will hit the ground running on day one. We already know how well he works with our people and that he's respected forward-thinking crew chief. Having worked with veteran driver like Elliott, Sadler for the last 3 years, extremely valuable experience, and he's the right fit for Jimmie at the right time. With an established number 48 team behind him, I believe that they will perform at a winning level next season and chase that 8 championship. So that's the press release from Mr. Hendrick, and it goes on to say, we believe that these decisions will provide us with a tremendous opportunity for success in the future. As an organization, we are here to win races and compete for championships. Everything we do comes down to putting our people in the best possible positions to further that objective. So that is the big news item, other than Matthew DiBenedetto's signing. And with Levine, that's pretty big news too. But this is the news of the day, in my opinion, is Hendrick and Jimmie Johnson getting a new crew chief, Chad Knaus, getting a new driver. So see what happens. We'll wait and see. 2019. So now we're going to shift towards the white flag in our program, and we are headed towards the final stretch run of this episode. Thank you for listening and sticking here. We had a lot of news items to cover today and a lot of things to talk about. So Talladega is coming up. The great unknown. Never know what will happen at Talladega, right? It's just chaos and calamity at its best. Here we go. These are the 5 drivers I think you should keep your eye on for Talladega, race number 2 in round 2 of the playoffs. So the Team Penske has won 6 of the last 8 races. We're just setting up some storylines here for you. 6 of the last 8, let's think of that. 6 of the last 8 Talladega races, Penske drivers, and those two, the dynamic duo of Logano, Keselowski, going to be ones to watch again. So Keselowski was a 2017 fall winner. Logano had won in 2016 and 15 in the fall, and is defending winner of Talladega in the spring. Won that in 2018, this past spring. And Ford has won 7 of the last 8 races at Talladega. My goodness, watch out for those Fords. So Brad Keselowski, obviously, is a choice here. His first career win came at Talladega in the spring of 2009. You could forget he's driving for James Finch. That wild and wicked race there at the end with Carl Edwards into the fence. That was some crazy shit, was it not? 5 career wins at Talladega and 19 career starts. He's the defending fall winner at Talladega. Won there in the fall of 2014. 7 top 5s in 19 career starts. 11 top 10s in 19 career starts. He's currently 6th in the standings. Has had a bit of a rough playoff to begin. His best finish was 9th at Richmond. Came in red hot, as we know. Was on that streak of 3 consecutive wins. Seemed to have just cooled off a little bit, but I think this is a chance for him. Talladega, one of his favorite racetracks. He survived that demolition derby last year. Remember that race last year? Was that wild or not? And here he is at the end, victorious. I think he remains patient here. Could get himself back in, but I think either way you're going to see him in the round of 8. But a win here, and then we all know that he's super good at Kansas as well. So a win would be nice, and I think he is a driver to keep your eyes peeled for on Sunday. Joe Logano, part of that Penske party, 3 wins in 19 career starts, 6 top 5s, 8 top 10s. He is the fall winner, as we pointed out, in 2015 and 16. And he won the spring event there. 3 top 5s in the last 4 Talladega races. Strong playoff run for Logano at this point. He's 4th in the standings. He was 3rd at Dover, 4th at Vegas. And he could be the first driver since 2007, that was Jeff Gordon, 4-time champion, to sweep Talladega. And Logano, I think, again, Logano's one of those guys I think is going to go to the round of 8. Pretty certain he's in the round of 8. Pumped up for that. And should be good. But I think, again, the Penske team, I'm not sensing victory by Penske in this race, but again, they are going to be someone to look after. And I think if Logano can sweep Talladega, it's a pretty good feat. Hasn't been done in a little over a decade. Anyone can do it. It's Joey Logano. I think a win like that would be a huge shift in momentum for the 22 team. And I am absolutely looking forward to see what they can do come Sunday. Eric Almirola could have won Dover. I mean, I think that was his race. It's his race to lose, was it not? In the last 4 races at Talladega, he has finished no worse than 4th. 5th in the fall of 2017, 7th in the spring. And this is all with Richard Petty Motorsports. I mean, for whatever reason or another, Almirola, and you know he's a great restrictor plate racer. His only career win in Cup came at Daytona in 2014. He has the ability to, was rain shortened, but he has the ability to win. And he almost won the Daytona 500. Let's not forget that. 1 lap away from doing that, right? He won the Xfinity race in the 98 car in the spring of 2017. So he's somehow finding his way around this place fairly decently. He's 9th in the standings. Solid year for him at Stewart-Haas Racing. I don't care what anyone says in this playoff. He's been 6th at Vegas, 5th at Richmond. Great season, regardless of what happens. I think past this round or even in the next, I think it's a win for him. A small victory, but it is still a victory. Almirola is a great driver, and I expect to see big things out of him in the future. So Eric Almirola definitely would be a huge victory for him. Could he pull it off at Talladega this Sunday? But one to watch as we head into Talladega. David Reagan. As you know, Talladega produces underdog finishes, and underdogs can find themselves in the winner's circle. Everybody's got a fighting chance. Got to stick into that draft, right? So Reagan, he pulled off maybe one of the biggest upsets in NASCAR history with Front Row Motorsports in the spring of 2013. Who could forget him and David Gilliland battling it out? Gets the 1-2 finish. David Reagan's in the winner's circle. 3 top 10 finishes in the last 3 races at Talladega. So that tells you the cars have speed there. Front Row Motorsports, if anything, I know it's not a sparkling statistic, but they run really well at Talladega and Daytona. And going back to superspeedway racing, David Reagan has one of his 2 career wins, is in addition to this one, was at the Coke Zero 400 in 2011 when he was driving for Jack Roush. I keep my eyes on Reagan. Different car. He's not in a 34 anymore. 34. It's kind of it's a number I'm thinking a lot about lately. 34. And he's not in the 34 car at this point. It's Michael McDowell, but 38. Still possible. I mean, I think right place, right time. I mean, a win for David Reagan. What would that do for David Reagan at this stage of his career? Sort of seems like his career is winding down. He's not maybe the talent he was, or was in the conversation, or was even really being looked at much lately. But A win like that would be great for him. I think it's a morale booster for front row and an out of the wise, forgettable season. And it's just nice to win, right? To put your name anytime you get the trophy, man. I think it's whether it's you're in the playoff or not, in a position to win championships, you get that trophy. Some good stuff. I want to see that. David Reagan, if he wins, I mean, that would be just one hell of a party for a front row, would it not? Well, we'll see what they can do. And finally, I think Chase Elliott. Keep your eyes on Chase Elliott. 5 career starts, 2 top 5s. He was 3rd in the spring race. He won the pole in the spring of 2016. Fresh off the Dover win. Keep that momentum going. He's already in the round of 8. Nothing to lose. Just all or nothing attitude here. 5th in the standings. Experiment maybe. And I think it just his fault. Bill's won there twice. His dad won there twice. So recorded the fastest lap in NASCAR history at Talladega. So there's a lot of Elliott racing heritage at Talladega. This is a chance for the young Elliott here, Chase, to put himself in a position where he could win a restrictor. And he's been really good at Daytona too. So it's just bad luck has seemed to have hampered his superspeedway escapades in NASCAR Monster Energy Cup. So looking back at that, it would be a good way to two consecutive. And that's saying a lot. And I said he's going to win at least a couple more races, so this would count as a race, right? So lots of time for Mr. Chase Elliott, and we'll see what he does at Talladega on Sunday. So that's going to wave the checkered flag on this episode, this edition of Super Fantastic Above Average Racing Spectacular. Hope you continue to enjoy the content we're putting out and continue to support this podcast. And we're going to keep this going until next week. And don't forget the bonus shows. We just finally did the Cal Ripken MBNA 2001 400 from Dover. It is now available for your listening pleasure. Still going to do that Martinsville race for Ricky Rudd, and forget about Ricky Rudd. But the 4 October themes, going to some memorial tributes here. We're doing one for Dan Whelan. We're going to cover, as you know, that anniversary is coming up on the 16th of his passing in 2011. Great IndyCar driver from England. I'm going to cover the career, span the whole career of Dan Wheldon and the legacy he left on open wheel racing and IndyCar. And in 1999, on October 31st, we're going to look back at the finale for Champ Car, as that series was, as I said, transitioning from really a lot of guys left after that series, after that finale in that series. They went on to do race for the Indy Racing League, and obviously the tragic death of Greg Moore there in 1999 at Fontana. And also the Daytona 500 champion, 1998 Daytona 500 champion and 7-time Winston Cup champion, Dale Earnhardt. We're going to cover his final win. That was at Talladega, the Winston 500 from 2000 in October. His final win, Kenny Wallace behind him, pushing him to the lead. Could forget that. What an iconic scene. And didn't know it at the time, but that would be Dale's final victory in Cup. And go back and relive that race from 2000. And then finally, we're going to look at the 1998 Pepsi 400, which was run under the lights at Daytona for the very first time, postponed from July of that year in October of 1998. So step back in the Wayback Machine and enjoy some of the great races and tributes to some of the great drivers of years gone by here. And that's coming up in the coming weeks here on our podcast, in addition to our weekly program, which I bring to you each and every Wednesday or Thursday, depending on when I record it. But until then, I am going to wave the checkered flag on this episode, and I really hope you're enjoying the races and the playoffs and some really interesting names that are emerging as favorites in the championship battle. And until next time, I will see you.